Marine boundary and its importance. Marine boundaries are like invisible lines drawn in the ocean to divide the water between different countries. These boundaries help countries understand their rights over the sea, such as fishing, mining, and security. Let's explore this topic step by step. 1. The idea of marine boundaries. A marine boundary defines where a country's rights and responsibilities over the sea start and end. Just like land boundaries, they ensure fairness in using ocean resources. 1930 Hague Conference. Early discussions on how to share the ocean. 1958 Geneva Convention on Sea Rules. First set of international rules about the sea. Important thinkers. Hugo Grotius, Dutch, suggested in the 1600s that the seas should be free for everyone. John Selden, British, 1635, disagreed, saying seas could belong to nations. 2. The territorial sea. This is the area of water near a country's coast, usually up to 12 nautical miles. Here, the country has full control, just like its land. Why it's necessary. 1. Fishing. Ensures locals can fish without interference. 2. Mineral resources. Allows countries to mine underwater treasures like oil. 3. Defense. Protects the country from threats. 4. Pollution control. Ensures clean waters by managing oily waste and harmful activities. 3. Key rules and methods for setting marine boundaries. Historical rules. Cannon shot rule, 1702, Cornelius van Binkershoek, a country owns as far into the sea as its cannons can shoot. 3-mile rule, 1745, Denmark, based on the range of old cannons. 200-mile rule, 1952, Chile, Peru, Ecuador. A country can claim a vast area of the sea to protect its resources. Modern methods for measuring. 1. Baseline method, drawing a line along the coast to measure the territorial sea. 2. Envelope method, a more flexible approach for coastlines with curves or islands. 3. Thalweg line, used for rivers. The deepest part of the river marks the boundary between two countries. 4. Zones beyond the coastline. The sea is divided into different zones, each with its rules. 1. Inland waters, rivers, bays, and lakes entirely within a country. 2. Territorial waters, up to 12 miles from the coast, controlled by the country. 3. Contiguous zone, extends up to 24 miles, where countries can enforce laws on things like customs and pollution. 4. Exclusive economic zone, EEZ, up to 200 miles, allowing a country to use natural resources. 5. Deep or open sea, belongs to everyone. No country can claim it. 5. Issues in marine boundaries. Countries sometimes disagree on where the lines in the sea should be. For example, fishing disputes, when fish cross marine boundaries. Mineral resources, who owns the oil under the sea? Solution. International rules like the 1958 Geneva Convention help countries work together to solve these problems. 6. Marine pollution and environmental protection. The ocean is home to plants and animals like fish, coral, and whales. Protecting them is important because pollution, waste from ships and oil spills can harm marine life. Sanitation, keeping waters clean ensures people have healthy seafood. 7. Functions of marine boundaries. 1. Economic. Countries can collect tariffs or taxes on goods entering through the sea. 2. Defense. Protecting against unauthorized ships or threats. 3. Navigation. Ensuring international ships can travel safely. 8. Examples. Varanger Fjord, Norway. A good example of how coastlines and marine boundaries work. U.S.-Canada boundary in the Great Lakes shows how shared waters are managed peacefully. Marine boundaries are like the rules. Part 1, short answer questions. 2. What do you mean by monopoly? Monopoly in this context refers to exclusive control or ownership of resources. When a country has full authority over its territorial sea, it exercises a monopoly by managing and using the resources found there, such as fish, oil, or minerals. 3. What are the watersheds included in the inland watershed? Inland watersheds are areas where rivers, lakes, and streams collect water and flow into larger water bodies. Examples include rivers flowing into seas or lakes within a country's land, like the Mississippi River flowing into the Gulf of Mexico. 4. What does state sea mean? State sea refers to the portion of the ocean near a country's coastline, where the country has exclusive rights to resources, defense, and environmental control. It typically extends up to 12 nautical miles from the coast and is called the territorial sea. 5. Is the deep sea bottom rich in minerals? Yes, the deep sea bottom is rich in minerals. Resources like manganese, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements are found in the form of nodules on the ocean floor. These minerals are vital for technology and energy industries. 6. Mention 4 contributions of oceans to mankind. 1. Food source. Oceans provide fish and other seafood, a primary source of protein for millions. 2. Transportation. Ships use oceans for trade and travel across the world. 3. Climate regulation. Oceans absorb carbon dioxide and influence weather patterns. 4. Energy. Oceans provide renewable energy through tidal and wave power. 7. What do you mean by mean curve? The mean curve represents the average shape of a coastline, or the boundary line along the shore. It is used in mapping and measuring marine boundaries. 8. What is the baseline method? The baseline method is a way of drawing an imaginary line along the coast to measure a country's territorial sea. It follows the low water line of the shore, and all measurements of sea zones start from this baseline. 9. What is the midline boundary? The midline boundary is an imaginary line drawn at an equal distance between 2 neighboring states' coastlines. It is often used to divide territorial waters or exclusive economic zones fairly. Overview. These short questions introduce key terms and concepts about marine geography and boundaries, setting the stage for more detailed discussions in later parts. Let me know when you're ready for Part 2 essay questions. Part 2, essay questions, 10 to 14. 10. Briefly describe the political claims on seas. Political claims on seas revolve around the rights of countries to control parts of the ocean for resources, defense, and economic activities. Countries assert sovereignty over their territorial waters, typically extending 12 nautical miles from the baseline, while also claiming exclusive economic zones, EEZs, up to 200 nautical miles. These claims often lead to disputes over fishing, oil exploration, and navigation rights. For example, disputes in the South China Sea arise because of overlapping claims on resources and strategic waterways. 11. Briefly discuss the areas of maritime rights. Maritime rights are categorized into several zones. 1. Inland waters. Complete sovereignty over waters within the baseline, such as harbors and estuaries. 2. Territorial waters. Up to 12 nautical miles from the baseline, where countries enforce laws and manage resources. 3. Contiguous zone, up to 24 nautical miles, allowing states to enforce customs, taxation, and immigration laws. 4. Exclusive economic zone, EEZ, extends up to 200 nautical miles, granting rights to explore and exploit marine resources. 5. High seas. Beyond the EEZ, these areas are international waters where no single country has sovereignty. 12. Mention the right-of-way zones in the ocean and describe the deep or open ocean. Right-of-way zones in the ocean ensure freedom of navigation and trade. 1. International shipping routes. Ships have the right to pass through territorial waters as long as they do not threaten security. 2. Exclusive economic zone, EEZ, allows regulated transit for foreign vessels subject to national laws. 3. High seas, free for all, governed by international laws like the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. The deep or open ocean, high seas, lies beyond national jurisdictions. It is a shared space for activities like fishing, research, and shipping, but environmental protection is crucial here to prevent overfishing and pollution. 13. What does state sea mean? Discuss the need for territorial seas. The state sea is the water zone directly adjacent to a country's coast, under its full control. This includes territorial seas and EEZs. Need for territorial seas. Resource management, fishing and extraction of minerals and oil. National defense, monitoring and preventing unauthorized access to the coastline. Environmental protection, controlling pollution and protecting marine biodiversity. Economic development, supporting industries like tourism and shipping. For instance, Bangladesh uses its territorial seas for fishing, trade routes, and offshore energy projects, contributing significantly to its economy. 14. What does state sea mean? Describe the functions of territorial seas. State sea refers to the areas of ocean a country controls, including inland waters, territorial seas, and EEZs. Functions of territorial seas: law enforcement. Countries enforce laws related to customs, immigration, and environmental regulations. Fishing and resource extraction: exclusive rights to use resources within 12 nautical miles. Defense: territorial seas act as a buffer for military security, monitoring foreign ships and submarines. Trade and navigation: regulating ports and shipping lanes to boost trade while ensuring safety. For example, through its territorial seas, the United States safeguards its ports while also promoting international trade by regulating major coastal shipping routes. Part 3, Essay Questions, 15T18. Briefly discuss the process of delimitation of territorial sea. The delimitation of territorial sea refers to the process of defining the exact boundaries of a country's territorial waters. This involves 1. Establishing a baseline. The baseline is the starting point for measuring the territorial sea, following the low water line along the coast. 2. Drawing boundaries. From the baseline, boundaries are extended up to 12 nautical miles. In cases where two states' waters overlap, the midline boundary is often used. 3. Negotiation and treaties. Countries negotiate boundaries to resolve disputes. For example, the India-Bangladesh maritime boundary was settled through arbitration. 4. Geographical features. Indented coastlines, islands, and river estuaries can complicate delimitation, requiring specialized methods like the envelope method or Thalweg line for rivers. 16. Discuss the method of measurement of ocean rings. Ocean rings or zones are measured using specific methods. 1. Baseline measurement, following the coastline, often using the low water mark. For irregular coasts, straight baselines or replica methods may be used. 2. Geometric methods. In the case of overlapping zones, a midline boundary is drawn at equal distances between two states' coasts. 3. Delimitation tools. Modern tools like satellite mapping and GPS ensure accurate measurements. These methods are crucial for avoiding conflicts and ensuring fair access to marine resources. 17. Mention methods of measuring ocean rings and discuss deep ocean rings. Methods of measuring ocean rings. 1. Normal baseline, measured from the low water line along the coast. 2. Straight baseline, drawn across bays, estuaries, and deeply indented coastlines. 3. Envelope method, used to connect outermost points of islands or reefs. 4. Thalweg line, follows the deepest channel in rivers for boundaries between states. Deep ocean rings. These refer to areas beyond the exclusive economic zone, EEZ, extending to the deep or open sea. Countries do not own these areas, but can exploit resources like minerals on the seabed under international law. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, governs these activities to ensure shared access and environmental protection. 18. Explain the process of maritime delimitation between two neighboring states. Maritime delimitation involves creating boundaries in overlapping maritime zones. The process includes 1. Negotiation. States discuss their claims to reach a mutual agreement. 2. Use of the midline principle. If the coasts are close, a midline or equidistant boundary is drawn. For example, the USA and Canada use the midline principle for the Great Lakes. 3. Arbitration or legal settlement. If negotiations fail, international courts or arbitration panels resolve disputes, as seen in the Bangladesh-Myanmar maritime case. 4. Geographical features considered. Factors like islands, estuaries, and the shape of the coastline influence delimitation. This process ensures peaceful and fair allocation of marine resources while minimizing conflicts.